Right now, rain outside means one thing: you get to stay in. Maybe it's an excuse to relax, watch something, do nothing at all. Now go back 50,000 years and picture that exact same rain. For a human back then, it wasn't relaxing at all. It was one of the most dangerous events they could face. A single storm could threaten someone's life in three completely different ways. And surviving it meant understanding and managing all three at once. The first danger was something most of us barely think about: hypothermia. Being wet doesn't just feel uncomfortable, it actively pulls heat from your body. A wet human loses body heat roughly 25 times faster than a dry one. That number sounds abstract until you picture a long storm in cold air. Even a mild 50-degree day could turn genuinely fatal if it dragged on. There was no dry clothing waiting inside, no blanket, no heater. Just exposed skin, wet fur, and hours of steady heat loss. The second danger was flooding, and it came from where people actually lived. Most shelters were caves, and caves were usually near rivers or hillsides. That location made sense for water access, for defense, for daily life. But heavy rain turned those same rivers into a serious threat fast. Water could rise quickly, funneling straight toward the very shelters people relied on. A cave that felt safe in dry weather could flood within hours of a storm. The third danger came from something sharing the exact same instinct: predators. Leopards and other animals wanted dry shelter just as badly as people did. And they were looking in the exact same places: caves, overhangs, dry ground. A storm didn't just bring cold and water, it pushed predator and prey together. Suddenly, the same cramped space held both the hunted and the hunter. So rain wasn't background weather, it was an active, layered emergency. Cold, water, and teeth, all arriving through the same event. Managing all three meant one thing had to come before everything else: fire. Fire wasn't just comfort, it was warmth, protection, and light all at once. And keeping it alive mattered more than almost any other single task. Starting a fire from nothing was brutally difficult for most of human history. It wasn't a quick strike of a match, it was slow, frustrating, uncertain work. If an existing fire went out during a storm, restarting it might not be possible. So losing a flame wasn't a minor setback, it could be genuinely catastrophic. People developed real methods specifically to prevent that from happening. Smoldering embers could be carried carefully, wrapped inside fresh green leaves. The leaves insulated the ember just enough to keep it alive during travel. Certain tinder fungus, growing naturally on tree bark, worked almost like a lighter. Carried correctly, it could hold a slow ember for a surprisingly long time. During a heavy storm, protecting the fire sometimes became one person's entire job. Someone would sit beside it for hours, shielding it from wind and dripping water. Feeding it slowly, carefully, with wood that had to be split from wetter logs. Because on the outside, every log nearby had already soaked through completely. Once the fire was secured, something else quietly took over: forced downtime. No hunting was happening. No traveling was happening. Just time, trapped indoors. And that trapped, unavoidable time turned out to build real technology. Caves from this era are packed with physical evidence of exactly that. Long stretches spent chipping stone into sharper, more precise tools. Bone needles, some recovered from sites over 61,000 years old. Making a needle like that took fine, careful, repetitive patience. Exactly the kind of task that fits naturally into a day you can't leave. Ochre, a reddish pigment, was ground by hand into fine usable powder. Slow grinding, stone against stone, again and again, until the color was right. And somewhere inside this same rhythm of enforced patience, rope was invented. Archaeologists have found tools built specifically for twisting plant fiber into cord. Making rope is slow. Genuinely tedious. Not something you'd choose on a free day. But it's exactly the kind of task a trapped, rainy day makes room for. And that one invention changed almost everything that came after it. Rope meant stronger shelters. Rope meant reliable traps. Rope meant secure bindings. A single twisted cord, born from boredom, reshaping how people built and hunted. People didn't stop at surviving their shelters, they actively improved them. Sleeping mats were woven by hand from long strands of sedgegrass. Evidence for this stretches back roughly 77,000 years. And these weren't simple mats, either. They were engineered with intention. Specific leaves, chosen deliberately for their natural insect-repelling properties, lined the edges. Comfort, quite literally, was built directly into the floor of the shelter. Rain didn't only produce useful tools. It also produced something else: art. Some of the oldest, most striking cave paintings sit deep underground. Sites like Chauvet hold artwork dated back roughly 36,000 years. In parts of Indonesia, similar cave art may be even older, around 45,000 years. Reaching these paintings wasn't easy. It meant crawling through total darkness, squeezing through narrow rock passages, far from any natural daylight. It's genuinely difficult to imagine doing that just for a casual afternoon. Which is exactly why researchers believe something else was going on. This art was very likely created by firelight, during storms that trapped people inside. When outside simply wasn't an option, some turned inward, toward the cave wall. And downtime changed something beyond tools and art, it changed conversation itself. During the day, talk stayed practical: where's the water, which direction, what's next? But at night, gathered around that same protected fire, everything shifted. Conversation moved toward stories, toward myths, toward deliberate, structured teaching. Critical survival knowledge got passed down, generation to generation, one fireside night at a time. Eventually, every storm ends, and the payoff that followed wasn't small. Soft, freshly softened mud held incredibly clear, easy-to-follow animal tracks. Hunting afterward became noticeably easier, the ground itself doing part of the work. Shallow depressions in rock filled naturally with clean, fresh drinking water. And certain foods exploded in availability almost immediately after a storm passed. Termite swarms erupted from the wet earth, offering easy, low-risk protein. Tubers, softened by the rain, became far easier to dig up and gather. So rainy days were never actually wasted time, whatever they might have looked like.